welcome. Thank you all for joining me to explore the meaning of context clues. Today's lesson we will cover context clues, comprehending and understanding unfamiliar texts. First, we will begin with our learning objectives. Students will be able to, number one, use text clues to determine the meaning of an unfamiliar word. Number two, determine the meaning of the word or phrases as they are used in a text, including figurative language such as metaphors and similes. And thirdly, use comprehension strategies that help or will help with defining and implementing words. When you read, you may encounter words that have many or more than one meaning. You may also run across an unfamiliar word, something that you have never seen before. Context clues can help you figure out the meaning of unfamiliar words by using the other words around them. Here are a couple examples of words that have more than one meaning: date, engaged, point, rose. Each one of those words can be used in a different way, all of which have more than one meaning. Context clues. Context clues can help you figure out the meaning of the word by using the other word clues around it in many sentences. So here we have an example. The example says, the girl hums continuously or all the time. What does the word continuously mean? Okay, so I know that I have to go back to my sentence and I have to figure out and look around and see what words are surrounding continuously, whether it's in front or behind. So I notice that I have an or statement. Okay, the or is behind continuously. So it says the girl hums continuously or all the time. I know that looking behind continuously, it says or all the time. From that statement, I know that continuously can also mean all the time. So then we have different types of clues, different types of context clues. We have rewording, which is saying the word in another way. Synonym, meaning of another word, similar or same. Antonym, opposite meaning of the word. And lastly, logic, general meaning, drawing your own conclusions. Basically, just thinking deep down inside of your brain and using your common sense or your general thinking just to understand what that word may be. All right, here we have a nice little chart that gives us different ways and different clue resources to use to identify and understand what certain words mean. I call this our using context clues chart. So we know that there are many different ways to understand a word and go through words. So here we have our examples. Number one, we can do the definition. We can use word parts, synonyms, antonyms, and examples, all stated previously. Okay, so going to definitions, we have the meaning. The meaning simply says, the marsh or swamp was a wet, muggy place. Okay, the word that I have underlined is marsh. So we also have another or statement. So I look and I see the definition. The definition of marsh would be swamp. The marsh or swamp was a wet, muggy place. That is one way that we can identify what the word means in our text. Another thing we can do, we can use word parts such as suffixes and prefixes. If we have a word such as helpful or redo, we look at the ending. On helpful, we have full. So we know that we help a lot. And also on redo, we have the prefix re, which means to do again. So we know that redo means that we have to do whatever task is being listed over again. Antonyms, which is the opposite meaning. She knew the cup was not fragile when she felt its sturdy handle and thick sides. My underlined word is fragile. I go back to my sentence and it says, she knew the cup was not fragile. Okay, what does fragile mean? After fragile, let's read the words. When she felt its sturdy handle and thick sides. So I can identify what fragile means by looking at the opposite meaning of fragile, which is sturdy. That's another way that you can identify and help you understand different words in the text. Next, we have synonyms. Synonyms are words that are the same. The fox raced swiftly through the trees and flew out the forest. My underlined word is swiftly. Now I can go back in my text and it says, the fox raced swiftly through the trees and flew out the forest. Okay, basically, I can look at my sentence and I can understand that swiftly means to go really fast, or in another word, we can connect it to flew, which means gotta get out of there fast, going really, really fast. But the word that we want to use is either raced or flew. Both kind of indicate how the fox got out of the forest. All right. And lastly, we can do examples. Examples such as like, such as, or. As stated before, I stated that we had a couple or statements. So in this example below, it says, a device such as a phone or MP3 player can be expensive. Here we go. What is a device? We can say the such as or MP3 player. So we can look at the examples like, such as, or to determine the meaning of a device. So we can see that after such as, a device can be either a phone, or after or, it can either be an MP3 player. So when trying to define the word device, I look at my such as or statements and I notice that it can either be a phone or an MP3 player. All right. And now we have a couple more examples to where I'll give you a sample sentences where it says there is a 30% chance of precipitation such as snow or sleet. What does precipitation mean? Okay, go back to my sentence and I see that 30% precipitation such as snow or sleet. I notice that I have an or statement, so I'm going to take that and I'm going to see what words are separate, what words are in between or on the side or around or. I see that there is also a such as statement, which means precipitation can be either snow or sleet. So I come over to my answers and I see what does precipitation mean? Does it mean take a drink, snow or sleet, or nap? Yep, you got it. We're going to go with B, snow or sleet. All right, let's come down to our second question or statement. The greatest trip I've ever took was my expedition to Africa. What does expedition mean? Okay, so I go back and does it mean flight, cruise, or trip? So I'm going to go in my sentence and the sentence says the greatest trip I ever took was my expedition to Africa. Okay, I know if you want to travel to Africa, you have to take a trip. Okay, so expedition is basically the same thing as taking a trip. So, yep, with all our answer would be not a flight, not a cruise, but a trip. There we go. So now we're going to move on. Good job. So, lesson summary, we explored different ways of finding context clues in a sentence or a passage. We know that we can identify and use context clues such as Antonyms, synonyms, rewording, logic, definitions, examples, and word parts to help us with understanding what a certain word is that we may not be familiar with. We also learned we also learned the definition of what a context clue is. So we should be able to not only identify what word we're needing to define, but look through our sentence and break our sentence apart to understand what that word means, even without using a dictionary. Become a word detective. Understand what you're reading and how to break apart your sentence to understand and comprehend the sentence.